Welcome to History Off the Leash. I'm your host, Quentin Weed, here today with Eric Price. This is a show in which a guest co-host and I discuss an event in history picked by the guest each episode. Today, you've chosen for us...
We're going to talk about D-Day.
Yeah, so D-Day. That was a big event in World War II, huh?
Yeah, and there's, so obviously it's the largest, as everyone should know, it's an incredibly large, commonly talked about subject. It's the largest multinational military attempt in any war as of today, so that's really cool. And, there's a lot of stories that go into D-Day that are often overlooked, but are key to the success of D-Day.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. My favorite one being there was a spy who is honestly responsible for the entire success of D-Day, as he misled the Germans to believe that the attack was about 150 miles north of where it actually was. And he was such an influential spy in there that the Germans, even during the middle of the attack of D-Day, thought a larger attack was coming to the north. And he was such a great double agent. His story is incredibly wild. Could talk hours about that man.
Yeah. Well, and you've heard, or at least I've heard, I don't know if everyone has, but they say that every single German spy was either flipped or was a double agent by the end of the war, working for the British and against the Germans at that point, which is just crazy. Which means, all their intelligence was just completely wrong.
I mean, it makes sense. I think throughout the war, more and more people started seeing that Germany was just a horrible country. Because, if you look at, the German tactics especially, they didn't want to win.
Right.
They just wanted to kill Jews.
Well, they wanted domination. They wanted to win for their ideology. They didn't just want to conquer someone. They wanted to assimilate.
Yeah. And if you didn't fit their key, they killed you. A clever military mind definitely would have used those prisoners to, pretty much turn them into slave labor and use them to progress their military thing. They didn't. They just started killing people, which was really crazy. And in a military standpoint.
Not that that would be a good thing.
No,
obviously,
obviously, yes.
But yes, if you were an extremely cruel, horrible person and you were also coldly intelligent, then yes, that would have been a great use of your resources.
Yeah, and he was just a horrible person. He wasn't, super intelligent.
No, he was.
But I gotta give props to him. Let's give props to the one guy who convinced an entire country that blue eyes and blonde hair was good without having either one of those features.
Yeah, and that Germans that were the superior race, even though he was Austrian.
Yeah, just charisma 10. He maxed out that skill.
That is called rhetoric right there.
Yeah,
boy.
But D-Day, yes, D-Day, as we were talking about, World War II is just such an interesting topic because everything really did work together.
Mm-hmm.
And D-Day, just an insanely effective military movement. It was. Did you know it was almost ruined by a spy's wife?
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
A spy got. I don't remember what the marital dispute was, but a wife got incredibly angry and was minutes away from leaking documents that would have ruined D-Day. And the MI5, which is the CIA equivalent in the UK, did not release that data until years and years and years after the war because they were that close to losing the war.
Interesting.
It was crazy.
Yeah, there are also the stories of obviously the weather was always a big problem. So I think they had to delay. Obviously, this is not researched beforehand, so we're just kind of going off the cuff. But I know they had to delay the landing quite a few times actually before. And then there was this small window where they weren't really sure if they were going to be able to land in good weather, but then it just kind of worked out because they were like, look, we've got to go before it leaks, because if it leaks, we're done. And they've been doing all this preparation with, the big thing that I think everyone learns is the whole using inflatable tanks and troops and stuff and setting up fake airfields and stuff to like bait them into thinking that the invasion was coming in a different location, which is,
Yeah. I mean, it's the tactics used to confuse and like distract each other's armies were crazy. I know they build an entire wooden airfield with like fake wooden planes just to make it look like that was a place
I think
that they were
that
sending
sounds right.
planes out of.
Yeah.
Just beautiful tactics.
Yeah, that really was yeah, that really sums it up. They really did a lot.
It's like modern wars would be fought so differently,
right?
Because our surveillance is just it's like tripled, if not quadrupled. It's vastly different than the surveillance skills that they had beforehand.
Yeah, using photographs from aircraft and stuff. I mean, you see, I keep saying you've seen, but I've seen, the shows and the movies where they've got the aerial photographs they've taken, and it's just like these horrible black and white photos, and it's all grainy, and you're just looking for little black dots in a forest.
Yeah, those look like people. No, those are those deer? Are those people?
Is that a random rock?
Who knows?
Who can tell?
And I mean, like nowadays, you fly a plane thousands of feet up in the air, and some dude's like, he's got a gray hair in his mustache. What a weird guy.
Boy.
And it's oddly specific surveillance.
But anyway, back to D-Day.
Yes.
Did you have any more about the spy guy, or?
Yeah. So the entire history of this, and I'm a little bit rusty. It's been a while since I've read up on him, but I remember his last name was Garcia, and he wanted to be a spy for the U.S., and the U.S. said no. So he went to the Nazis and said, hey, I want to be a spy for you. And the Nazis, of course, were like, oh, yeah, sure, come on board. We're not going to question anything. And, he spied for them and gave them relatively fake data. And then he went to the U.S. again and said, hey, I'm a spy for the Germans. I want to switch sides. And he gave them all this data. And the U.S. finally said, okay, I guess we'll take you on as a spy. And he proceeded to relay fake information to the Germans. And I mean, like, he had expert skills. He would bring in some information that was like days late, so it looked like he was still doing his job. And most of the information that he gave to the Germans were things that were on like newspaper clippings and stuff, just like commonly known information. And he created a whole network of spies, and none of these people existed. And they had like families and kids, and the Germans were paying pensions to people that didn't exist. And he had to like lose spies. So the Germans were paying like, oh, I'm sorry, your husband died payments to women that didn't exist. And that's like how crazy his information was, and how crucial he was to the Germans for them to have this entire fake network of spies and never know it. And the U.S., I mean, just got so much information from him.
Yeah, those stories of the spies. Spies are always such an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Like, imagine just living a whole life where you're not who you say you are, and you're just there to report to someone else about what this country is doing.
Yeah. And being like one mistake, sentence
one
away
mistake
from
and you're dead.
I mean, you can also look at like just like the interesting parts about like spy craft in general, especially when it comes to like cryptography.
Oh yeah.
The whole story of like the Enigma machine and how they had it cracked and didn't tell anybody. The US had it cracked for so long and let people die just to protect the fact that they had it cracked. Is ultimately the best play that you can make, but at what cost? It's kind of like that utilitarian mindset.
True. Yeah. Well, and also we in the same vein of World War II,